at how we evaluate folks on a per group or basis, not just separating the silos between development and plan giving. Annual giving then, it's a hybrid marketing mix, blending the messaging which combines both annual and legacy gifts. Again, in your messaging vehicles, what's a simple way to put in some legacy giving or plan giving language? You put a little column in your newsletter. I just had a client last week who said, hey, we now have dedicated, we've gone from a 4-page to a 6-page, and we've dedicated this 1/3 of page 5 in every one of our newsletters, and it's going to be talking about estate giving, legacy giving, plan giving. Okay, so that's very simple ways that you can get people to start thinking about legacy and plan giving in your current newsletter. It's not about changing and making 5 pages of plan giving and forgetting about what you want the stories, you want the projects that are going on, but incorporate it in a simple way. So that's the idea of the combining the marketing pieces. So the strategic goal is sustainable lead generation. I touched on that earlier. A lot of great organizations here who know how to do lead generation. Well, one way to do lead generation for legacy giving and plan giving is just incorporate it a little bit into your messaging. Okay, and so what does plannual giving do? It helps your, as I've said, it helps your development plan giving teams view their donors through a wider prism, okay? So that you can better reach the most likely plan giving donor. So here it is. It's not your major donors, right? They're part of that, but your most likely plan giving donor is the loyal annual or monthly donor. I could spend the rest of the time, and I know that Durham and others have examples of the loyal, faithful, what we call, what's scripture say? The lady who gave the 1 coin, what was she called?
Widow's mite.
Okay, widow's mite, there you go. And we see that over and over. Again, just recently, a gift, in fact, I'm going to have you, no, it wasn't you, it was somebody else, okay. But we see it all the time where they give $15 a month for 30 years, they go home to be with the Lord at age 92, and then 6 months later, here comes a gift in the will, and it's $50,000 or $300,000, and you're blown away. And it's because you didn't know the capacity that that person had, and you didn't know how the Lord impressed it upon their heart to put you in their will. But they were loyal, faithful donors for all those years. And so somebody else here, first day I was here, told me a story of going up to the oil fields of North Dakota, and I live in Grand Forks, and to meet with a donor for the first time. And her husband had passed away, and she was giving like a couple $100 a month. Had a conversation with her, took her, he said she took him around on her four-wheeler, has I don't know how many acres, but it's all kind of oil-related money. And so the giving that so he came back, and within a few weeks, she said, I am going to start giving, and the amount came out to $60,000 a year. So she started giving $5,000 a month instead of the like 500 or whatever the number was. In addition, then she said, and the next thing is I'm going to work through and think about putting you in my estate plan, and I'm going to pray about that. So those are kind of things that can happen when you don't neglect your loyal annual or monthly donor. Comments, questions? Anybody have any stories along that line? I know Durham does, but all of you, if you don't, at some point you will have that story, that widow's mite, because we get it at least weekly with the clients that we work with. Okay?
I'm sure there's a balance in having that conversation of encouraging good stewardship and not being pushy at the same time.
Correct. So here's one of the tools that's important that we teach. Listen more than you speak. Listen 80 to 85%, talk 10, 15%. And I used to do this before I joined Money for Ministry with one of our clients, and it was a prison ministry. And I can tell you, I'd be sitting here and I'd be listening to you, and you're going on for 2 minutes, and I'm not really hearing you because I'm already thinking, I got to tell him when he's done about this piece of marketing or this brochure, and I wasn't. And so the key, and then sometimes then oh, we can, so then I start talking, well, we have this and we can do that, and planned giving is about this, and plannual giving, it's about listening first and talking less, because you want to hear the person's side. I use the 3 H's. You want to hear the person's heart, right? Because when you hear the person's heart, you're going to hear prayer requests, you're going to hear what's going on with their family, you're going to hear what's going on with their jobs. So you take the time, and over a period of time, you get to understand their heart. Once you know their heart, then they might say, well, hey, I'm interested potentially in putting you in my will, but how do I do that? So the second H is you move from the heart 12 inches higher to the head, okay? And the head piece is, of course, the information. How do you put you in the will? How do you do a legacy gift or a planned gift? So you start with inspiration. We use the term inspiration. When you're getting to know their heart, you're starting with inspiration, and then you're providing information so that the head can comprehend how to do this. And then here's the key. The third H is hands open. And none of us in this room can create hands open. That's the Lord's work. So if it's another analogy is we're planting the seed and watering when we get to know the heart and the head piece, okay? But the harvest ultimately comes from the Lord. None of us here we can have 20 different conversations, and we can get to know their heart. We can get to know, we can give them, the tools, but only the Lord is going to ultimately open up their hands to say, yes, I want to do this. I want to give you $5,000 a month, or I want to put you in my legacy plan. Make sense?
Brian?
Yeah.
Let's see how far you get on the slide, but I have a great story of a very much a mid-level donor at a rescue mission.
Oh.
Impact for a lot of related.
Okay. Well, let me see what time it is.
But I'm saying we can come back to it.
Okay.
I want to make sure you get through your presentation.
Okay. Well, thank you. No, that's what I want, interaction and stories from others. This isn't the Brian show, so. Okay, so why is plan giving important? I already talked about this. The government will determine a plan for you if you don't have one. And if it's not thought out properly, there will be undesirable effects on the family. A donor's legacy, it's their final snapshot, right? Think about it, it's their final snapshot of what they value. So legacy giving effectively transfers assets at death by doing the following things. Needs your heirs, your children, I talked about this, your grandchildren. I talked about it. It's an act of worship. It's an act of worship to invest in the ministry. And, of course, there is that tax piece. We don't want to ever lead with a tax piece, but obviously it's an important piece that we want to take into consideration and be wise in how we can give to the kingdom and still minimize taxes. Not avoid them, but minimize them. So, to try to make it simple, what is legacy giving and planned giving? You have 3 opportunities in the simplest terms. Gifts that leave a legacy, and that's where money for ministry comes in. Now, 70% of planned giving is right here. 70% of planned giving is the legacy gifts that I'm going to get more in details on, but I want you to know about the other 2. So gifts in a will, gift of retirement assets, 403B, 401K, okay? And then gifts of life insurance. So that is 70% of the whole planned giving opportunity. But then you've got gifts that provide an income for life, all right? I think everyone's probably familiar with charitable gift annuities and charitable trusts, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But, for those folks who are 60 plus, it depends on the ages, but, 60 plus usually, charitable gift annuity is the best known because it works for folks, that have basically anywhere from 10 to 20,000 to start a charitable gift annuity. But for those who are major givers or the Lord is blessed with wealth, charitable trusts, you usually have to have about $150,000, $200,000 to open up a charitable trust. So it's not for everybody. But those are the 2 vehicles where that person's going to get an income until they go home to be with the Lord, and then there's going to be a piece left over, the charitable gift annuity or the trust, for their favorite ministry. So I'm not going to go into detail on those gifts because that's not what we're here to cover. But I am going to talk a little bit about the third area, because this is, remember when I said planned giving is both current and deferred? This is the current piece. Gifts of assets other than cash. And this ties back into the first slide about all this, wealth and transfer, because a lot of it is coming through gifts of non-cash assets. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about that. Would you rather get a gift from a donor from what's in the big bucket, or would you rather get a gift from the donor from what's in the small bucket? 90% of the gifts that come in are in that small bucket. Okay? It's the cash, the checkbook, CDs, things of that nature. That big bucket is sitting out there with 90% of the assets in this country. And the big three, real estate, all different forms of real estate, appreciated securities, privately held securities, and business interests. Business interest is probably even, no, I think real estate's still ahead, but business interest is really taken off. Again, there's just so many businesses that have been created, and you know, mom and dad are going to pass it on to the kids and still give a piece to their favorite rescue mission. So you don't want to, you want to be aware of that big bucket and that what's out there and as potential. Okay, so the small bucket, cash and checks, the big bucket, assets. All right, I thought I'd time for a little humor here. So non-traditional or non-liquid assets is what I just talked about. So again, most of your gifts and most of us, we're the normal sheep, right? We give from our check, we give from our cash. But if you go to Jamaica, you discover non-cash assets. So there you go. This has nothing to do with it. This is just some humor. But it does point out the difference between giving from, you know, from what we traditionally do and looking into non-cash assets. So let's take a quick look here. Liquid and non-liquid assets. Again, liquid, I won't spend much time. We know what that is, but it includes, you know, the money market funds, CDs, treasury bills. Now, I was going to originally ask you for non-liquid assets and have you see how many you can name, but this is only some of them. But think about that. So real estate there, it can be your house, it can be a piece of property, it can be forests, rental properties, farmland. One thing that is not really convertible, timeshares. I used to work for some Christian community foundations, and we'd get calls about timeshares, and it's, you know, people trying to dump those, and so don't even go there. So that's the one area I'd say avoid timeshares. But corporations, C corps, S corps, a lot of LLCs, a lot of this wealth are in the simple LLCs. You can open an LLC for $50 in most states and be in business. Closely held businesses, huge opportunities there. Partnerships. How about art and coin collections? Any of you have any valuable pieces of art at home or some coin collection? My grandmother saved like silver dollars and certain quarters for me, and now I'm saving them for my kids. So I think I had them appraised once. So they're maybe worth 4 times what they were originally. So it's not great, but the point is, some of these generational transfers, you can have some coin collections. How about oil and gas interests? We live up in North Dakota. I mean, of course, things have been kind of shut down, but I mean, just the states where you have those opportunities for oil and gas interests, huge. How about precious metals? Do you own any silver, any gold? So that can be gifted. Livestock, crops, equipment. Again, at the Christian Community Foundation where I work, we used to get gifts of crops. We had somebody who gifted eggs, thousands and thousands of eggs. I mean, the stuff that can be gifted is absolutely mind-boggling. Intellectual property, right? Books, patents, things of that nature. And here's one I didn't put on the list. Anybody like to go game hunting, big game hunting in here by any chance? Think about that, right? People go on these safaris. They go over to Africa. They shoot some wild animal. They come back. What do? They mount the thing. Those things have some value for certain, you know, you have to find the right buyer. But anyhow, just to point out just how broad that non-cash assets. Yeah, go ahead.
The eggs, the donation of eggs, how do you convert that? How do you get cash? Or I don't understand that.
You know what? I don't know the technical details of how they did it, quite frankly, but they did it. They were able to somehow evaluate, value what those eggs are, and then donate them. So, yeah,
You gotta do it quickly.
I could find out for you, but that's the technical part. That, yeah, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not on the technical side for sure. But yeah, it was done. Okay, so let's get into our legacy. How do we think about our legacy? Well, I've already said, we look back at lives and we think about our legacy. Two common reactions. So important to know when we start thinking now about the legacy piece, which is a gift and a will or legacy giving. Two common reactions, avoidance or obedience, right? We don't use the word death in the communications that we give to our clients. We certainly encourage them not to use the word death, because people, even believers, there's something about the word death. It's like when you go home to be with the Lord, when you mature. Some people use the term mature, but yeah, which is like, I don't know if I like that one. But the point is, avoidance or obedience. Some people don't want to think about death. They want to avoid the whole thought of legacy giving, or they want to be obedient. Scripture, it's a stewardship issue, and Scripture wants us to be obedient. The Lord has entrusted us, right, with whatever He's entrusted us with, and He wants us to use it for the kingdom when we're gone, so it can continue. Legacy planning is not a function of donor age, but rather donor loyalty. I talked about that. Sometimes we think, well, it's for those people who are 70 plus, and a lot of us, that's who our donor base, with rescue missions is, right, older folks. But you've got the 30 and 35-year-olds, and that's the next generation. And there are different ways to reach out to them, right? It's going to be more social media than a hard copy printed bulletin. And it's going to be being able to give on their phone. But you want to get them to think about that whole part that, hey, we're having our first child. Maybe we should have a will, okay? So legacy planning depends on how long and how frequently donors are giving as well. All right, this is Randy Alcorn. Anybody ever seen this? It's pretty popular, yeah. So there's the book, The Treasure Principle. Like I said, it's a pretty easy read, very great book. You can find that on Amazon. And I know that at least 2 or 3 of our clients give that away as a gift when people put them in their plan. They said, hey, we want to leave you a gift, and they send them the Treasure Principle. So basically what it is I can't take it with me, but I can send it on ahead. And how do I do that? I should live not for the dot. So the dot you can see, life on earth. We want to be living for the line, that whole time that we are on earth here, okay? All right? So pick up that book if you don't have it. So how do I live out my legacy? How about some scripture here? 1 Timothy 5:8. What financial needs will my family face in the future? That's an important question. That's a huge family discussion, especially as your children get old enough to understand some of this. Sit down, have those family talks, those family discussions. What kind of generational legacy do I want to establish? Again, that's a personal thing. We all have some kind of legacy that we want to establish. Now, for most of us, it's not, hey, Brian wants his name on this new building. Okay, most believers, that's not what it's about. But it's about, okay, what are my, deep down inside, what are my values? And I'm going to share those with you. What are some of those values that we cherish that we want to pass on? And then, of course, we want kingdom impact. Okay, what do we want to see created with our resources during our lifetime? Okay? God's given us all various amounts of resources. How do we use them? So here's the piece I was talking about. So we want to help your donors be inspired. That's the first piece, okay? Inspiration over information. Then we want them to take action, make a will. That's, remember, the head piece, and how can we help them do that? But then when they have that and they put you in their will, this is the ethical will or the legacy love letter that I was talking about. So so unlike the normal will or a normal legacy gift where it's pretty, you've got to follow some rules, this is really up to you. It's up to the individual on how you want to do this. You can write this down. You can make a video. You can do an electronic, version. You can put it in a diary. But how do you want to pass on your values to your kids or grandkids or friends or family? So how do you start? What can you start thinking about? What are some of your favorite things? Hey, family vacation spots. We love to go to North Carolina, So artists. Who are your favorite artists? Who were your favorite musicians? Songs. What songs did you like? Wow, this song, you know, I was in a deep, dark place, and this song came out, and it blessed me. And Mom and Dad loved listening to the Bill Gaither Trio if they're 80 years old or whatever, or the you know, whoever the. Last night he mentioned Crouch, Andre Crouch, and he mentioned the Imperials. I remember those groups when I was in college. Okay, so memories, hobbies, etc. What is important to know about your family? Stories, memories from your grandparents, parents, children. Okay, I'm going to go through this quick because you can have this. How have your life experiences shaped you? What are you proud of? What are you grateful for? But what was your biggest failure? Be honest. You know, what were the hard times? I've been unemployed a few times. So for my kids, it's to say, hey, the Lord will take you through it. It's going to be hard, but the Lord will take you through it. So whatever those circumstances are, okay? The most difficult time in my life was fill in the blank. What are your hopes? Our society needs hope right now more than anything else, right? So what are the hopes for your family's future? What values do you want to pass along? So now, how do we identify goals and define what success looks like in legacy giving? So I'm going to bring all these up and then so planned giving, you might say, okay, well, we want planned giving to account for 5% of our total annual revenue. But that's a hard goal to have, because unless folks are letting you know in an estate gift, then you'd have to rely on non-cash giving. But you could say, okay, from non-cash giving, from people who have appreciated real estate or stock, we'd like for planned giving to account for 5% of our total annual revenue. Again, Scripture wants us to have goals, all right? And so determine rescue mission by rescue mission. Or you want to convert 10% of our active donors to legacy givers. When I worked as a planned giving director, it was I just want to make sure that the development team knows about planned giving and can bring potentially 2 folks per year to me who are potential planned giving folks. So it can be very, very simple. It's not that you have to have a bunch of people. You want to add how many givers on an annual basis, or you want to double the size of your legacy society. So I won't get into that. I think you know what that is. You can create a legacy society, which is a special way of recognizing your legacy givers. Or you want to connect with your legacy givers at a deeper level, and you want to grow the amount of potential legacy givers. Now, the order of the message matters. I already touched on this. We want to lead with inspiration, follow with information. Now, why am I showing this Subaru? Back in the 80s, car commercials were all about what? It's got a 350 engine. It goes 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. It's got all this cargo space. Now it's about telling a story, storytelling. We know that in all fundraising, storytelling is very important. So the Subaru commercials now don't even necessarily tell you what kind of vehicle it is, but they just tell you, wow, you're going to have safety, you're going to be able to go to the beach, you're going to be able to do this. It's storytelling now that sells that. And so why did they switch? Because it sells cars. So that's kind of a little bit of the change. And so when we look at legacy giving, that's what we want to lead with, is inspiration, okay? Storytelling and finding out what matters to your donors. I already touched upon that, okay? And then you follow with the information, which I already touched on. Now, how do we identify who might be interested? Longtime faithful givers. Now, what does 12-12-12 mean? We look at the recency, frequency, and longevity. So somebody who's given 12 gifts in the past 12 months, and they've given for 12 years. Now, again, as you get to know your donors, this isn't a, you have to abide by this. This isn't the Bible. But that's a general rule of thumb to help you with when we say a longtime faithful givers, we want to look at those 3 areas. How long have they given, how much have they given, and how recently have they given. Monthly givers, I already touched upon that. Your monthly givers are very important. How about volunteers? You all have volunteers, right? I mean, volunteers are twice as likely to put you in their legacy plan as non-volunteers. Okay, so don't forget about your very valuable volunteers. And people who love to share your work with others. We use the term ambassadors. If somebody responds and says to you, oh, I'm willing to share about you with my church small group, my sister, my parents, my neighbor, those are ambassadors for you. They love you, and they're willing to speak up, and we can help you again with some of the content that you can put in those folks' hands so that they can become ambassadors for you. Okay? What about high net worth donors? Yes, remember what I said? Legacy giving and planned giving is for everybody. So of course, your high net worth donors or your major and mid majors. So the useful data points is what I just touched upon. Date of first gift, date of last gift, gift count, and then special segments of folks. Now, how about getting to know your donors? 3 Ps, get to know the person. I touched on this already. Ask these questions. Hey, how did you first hear about our rescue mission? And was there someone or something that connected you to our work? Okay, so get to know the person. I've already touched on that. What's their passion? That's the heart piece that I touched on. What's their passion? Which parts of our work have impacted you the most? Where would you like to see us invest more resources? Now, some people, I love everything the rescue mission does, fine, but usually if you can have a conversation with them and you can go a little bit deeper, you're going to find out that there's a specific area, maybe 2 areas, that they're more passionate about. Preferences. Do you want mail? Do you prefer email contact? Do you never want to be called? What are their preferences to be connected? And then, have you ever considered? So we ask these with our clients. We put this in in the communications that we encourage them to do. Hey, are you interested in being a volunteer or a board member or a committee member? Okay, so that's how you identify and get to know your donors: person, passion, preferences. So what does the planned giving journey look like? This is what we use as our basis. So awareness. So I've already touched on that. There are people who, 70% of folks, 60 to 70% of folks have never thought about a will, don't know what a will is, and certainly don't know that they can put their favorite ministry in their will. They think, okay, a will so I can take care of my heirs, I can take care of my children. So we want to help them get aware of the fact that legacy giving is an act of obedience, and that it's a key piece that they need to be aware of. So how do they start? So they're just like, oh, okay, I heard this. Okay, how are we gonna move them from becoming aware to having an interest now? Okay, and that's through the work that you do in reaching out to them, whether it's in person, coffee, whether it's by phone or by email, and then our program continues a mail or email dialogue with those folks too. We find out which folks have initially responded that they're aware, and then we continue that communication to get them to move. You can see the direction of the arrow, to move to have an interest now in knowing more. So when they have an interest, then the final piece is, okay, with time, and then, like I said, it can take years sometimes, but we want them to take action, and we want them to put your rescue mission in their will or in their estate plan. Okay? Who's your planned giving team? Everyone. Whoops. Development team, leadership, marketing and communications. Your partners, right? All the folks who are here as partners that you have, wonderful partners. Events, how many events do you put on? What kind of events? During COVID, we all adapted, right? From an in-person model to an online model, to a video model. Donors, volunteers, I touched on ambassadors, people who are willing to share about you, board members, stakeholders, and then the programs. Everybody needs to at least be aware of what legacy giving is and the importance of planned giving, your whole team. And we work with your team as well. We do individual training. Sometimes questions come up. Well, if somebody doesn't answer the phone, how many times do I leave a message? And then, well, if they don't have a phone number, how do I communicate with them? And so we get all the way down to the good old handwritten note, right? If somebody's 95 years old and they're not on the computer and so forth, boy, the handwritten note has always been a key piece that will probably never go away.